Hey guys, Mark and Shelley here with Betterdog Live. This is yet another live show, and we have a little bit of information for you.
Breaking news.
Breaking news, so to speak. I found out some information pertaining to dogs and the coronavirus, and we're going to get to that pretty soon. But first,
stay tuned.
I wanted to show you, I've started teaching Ruckus another trick. So this started with me teaching him the target stick. Last week, we started him on crawl. He's doing better with that. But I took the opportunity to also start teaching him to do another task. This is kind of a funny task, but this can become something that he does automated. For me, it's just a party trick. Well, sort of. So let's see if we can see that clip right there.
To close the cabinet doors, and so he's got to
so what you can see here is that Ruckus is standing in the kitchen, and down there is an open cabinet. All right, there's a little blue piece of tape on the open cabinet, and I put tape on the end of the target stick. And check him out, check him out. He's getting ready to do something very unique. And so I'm telling him to close it, and then now he's closed the cabinet door. So this is a good one because we can say close it, and he'll run close the cabinet door. So this is one cabinet door. He hasn't learned to close doors with a hinge on the other side yet. And he's just figuring out that it's not the target stick, it's actually, he's got to actually touch the door and cause the door to close. So we're going to let this run through one more time.
Now he's learned to touch the cabinet anyway.
Watching it because I've only seen this like for half a second.
Close it.
And I have to say, I'm most excited about this trick because Mark leaves all the cabinet doors open. Like, I don't know.
I don't.
Most women can say that. I think it's a man thing. I don't mean to be, you know.
Okay, bring it back to us.
I don't mean to be sexist, but I think it's a man thing. I think that you guys open cabinets and you just leave them. Like, I don't understand how you can't close them. And so I'm super excited about this because maybe you should teach Ruckus just to follow behind you after you go through the kitchen and close all the cabinets behind
I know.
you.
And then next I need to teach him to organize the tools and like put them away.
Yeah, but just put things away.
Now, if he starts changing the toilet paper roll, then he's earning his keep.
That would be great.
That's all I'm saying. He'd have to change hers every day.
Can't. It's toilet paper shortage right now.
So anyhow, we have some stuff that I'm going to talk about, and I just wanted you to see how Ruckus was doing that little trick. So the technique I used there was first, he learned to push on the end of the target stick. Then I turned this target stick around, so the red ball that you saw in the last episode is not actually in front of him, just the end of the small tubular stick is. And so I put a little tape on that. He's bumping that. So as soon as I put the tape on the doorway, I started pointing at it with the target stick. And we were probably, 20 minutes of training. You do little 5-minute segments because he was getting a little frustrated. And then when I went back today, he started actually closing the door today. So we did that several times. I have a bunch of video of it, but I just wanted to show the quick video of him doing that. And so I did find out some things that I did not know today. And
no way. I thought you knew everything.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I do.
Only about dogs.
Only about dogs. When it comes to dogs, I'm always right. Anything else, she's right.
Right. Yes. Did everyone hear that? This is
What's
live.
that
I'm
they
so
say?
glad that you said that.
She's happy. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, that's right.
Just saying. So anyhow, as I was going through and preparing for the show, I started looking around, and one of the things that I found was this cool little image, and I don't have it put up yet, but it was really, really, really cute. And it showed a bunch of people standing in line. Yes. And so last week, we were talking about the smartest animals, and pigeons were up there. They were pretty high up there.
Crow.
Pigeons were actually ahead of dogs, but behind crow.
Oh.
And I think pigeons were 11 or 12. I'm pretty sure they were, I think they're like 11, and then there was a 12th one, maybe a raccoon.
I was paying attention.
And then the next one was dogs were number 13 out of millions of animals, so that's pretty good. And so anyhow, my friend Jana, she said she was surprised to see pigeons so high on the list.
Right.
So anyhow, there's this cute little meme. Meme.
No, it's meme.
Is it meme or is it meme?
It's meme. And
This is
This
is a constant conversation.
The way that it's spelled, and then I'm just going to say, everyone says it's meme. Because that's right.
So I want to know, is it pronounced Maine or is it pronounced mean? She says mean. I say Maine.
What does M-E spell?
Yeah, but the E at the end changes the sound of the E. Giddy up.
What?
Maybe I'm wrong.
We'll
So
see.
anyhow, I saw this cute little thing, and I meant to get it in there. I just did not have time to get it on the notes so that it would pop up on the screen. But basically, it shows people standing in line to get on a train, and there's little circles on the cement, and in one circle there's a lady standing, and in front of her in the circle all by itself is a pigeon, and in front of that is another person standing in their circle. Now, the photograph right next to it shows a person standing right behind another person, and it basically says, well, pigeons figured it out. So I thought that was cute after we had the pigeons in the top 13.
I'll also have to add that we got yelled at today at Walmart by the lady checking us out because we went for our annual shopping trip. Not annual, I shouldn't say annual, but our weekly.
It felt
bi-weekly,
annual.
I know it did. The price felt annual. But shopping trip, we tried to do it all in one shot, one time, go out as least little as possible.
Right.
And the lady yelled at us. But we were like the whole cart and then some. We're not crowders. We're not those people. We're the people who avoid everyone else like you're supposed to.
Okay, so the woman and her son before us both had on masks.
Mm-hmm.
We had on masks.
And
The people behind us had on masks, and the cashier.
No, she's just doing her job.
She had she had on a mask,
Right.
and so the social distancing is what, 6 feet? Is that what
Right.
it is? So we're clearly 6 feet away from this person, but in her head, which is about 10 feet, there was a register in front of us, and that was her marker.
That was her threshold, and that's fine.
That was
But
her
I
threshold.
impressed with her because she
So-
yelled at us, and then she yelled at the guy behind me because
Hold-
he came.
Hold on, I
right in front of us.
have an important point to
Oh.
make. So the first time I came in front of that register, we were probably still at about 8 feet.
Oh, I know what you're going to
All
say.
right, we were still at about 8 feet.
I'm
And
gonna
she
say
goes,
it seems.
"Excuse me, sir, step back, please." And I said, "Certainly." And we stepped back. So we're sitting there talking, and while I was talking to Shelley, she took a step forward.
As I did.
And when you're talking to somebody, you kind of stay with them, right? So she's talking, and she takes a step forward, and I took a step forward.
With the cart.
And even though she was ahead of me and the initiator, the lady looked over and she goes, "Sir, please step back."
I get you in trouble at Walmart.
So that happened a couple of times. And then when we got there, she was as sweet as she could possibly
Oh, yeah,
be.
she's just doing her job.
She was just doing her job, and Walmart was great today. They were very nice at the register, so it's not like we had any problems or anything like that.
Hey, James. James Prescott's with us.
Hello, James.
And Ashley Marie, she said she's a new puppy owner.
Ooh, we got to talk puppy.
Yeah, we have to talk about the tethering too, maybe at some point.
I'll actually feature that a little bit tonight. I'm gonna have to nudge that in because we have a puppy.
And Darcy said hello as well.
Hi, Darcy. How's Austin going?
Oh, Austin. I
Yeah,
remember
this is
him.
Austin's mom.
Darcy.
Austin is like the awesome dog that wouldn't let anybody near her or any of the family members.
He's so cute.
And while walking, Austin would let somebody have it if they bothered her or came anywhere near
Kind of
her.
doing his job.
And now she can take him all these places. But I must tell you, Darcy was one of the most determined clients that I've ever worked with. She followed everything to the letter.
which is very important.
She did
didn't
great.
do that.
No,
That's why I just started dating you, because then you can just keep training. Just kidding.
every week with her, I would say, "How's he doing?" And she would go,
I didn't really
"I
work with
didn't
him.
really practice with him. I don't know."
I
And
just want you to do it.
so I guess she found a way to keep me around.
What we have next?
So anyhow, so I thought it was pretty interesting to go into the trick with the cabinets. But
I
one
like the cabinet trick. Just gonna say, I think it's amazing.
my goal is to be able to open up all the cabinets, and this is tricky because there are some drawers, and the cabinets have to be pushed sideways like this. The drawers have to be pushed straight in,
Oh yeah, so it's not just a.
and he needs to learn not to push on the side of the drawer. Because if he pushes on one side of it,
It won't close.
it won't go in straight, so it won't go in very well.
Mine are like the soft close too.
That
so-
makes it easier. So then the other part of it is there's some of those cabinets have the hinges on the other side.
Right.
So as Ruckus figures this out, and he gets deeper into it, he's going to realize that it's when the cabinet actually closes.
And all this was done with a target stick, right?
Yeah, this was done with a target stick. I started out with a target stick. He's touching the target stick. And then what I did was open the cabinet door a little bit and put the target stick against the door. So he would push on that target stick, causing the door to move. Now I put blue tape on the door, which he can't really, you can see a shade of blue. And I put blue tape on the end of the target stick. So I just held the blue over the blue and he pushed it. Well, after I did that about 20 times, I just pointed with my finger. And at first, of course, he's nudging my hand like crazy.
Right,
because he's saying, dude, where's my treat?
And you're saying touch, right? Touch.
And I'm saying touch it first because he knows touch means touch target stick, touch my hand.
And then click and treat when he does it.
And I use that touch in another trick, which I'm going to show you in a second. So when I got him bumping the target stick, I removed it, pointed with my finger. He bumped the drawer the first time. He walked past me. He did not initiate like a, I'm going to bump the door. He just kind of brushed it with his shoulder. And he looked at me, and I could tell he was trying to work it out because he knew something was going on. He knew the rules had changed a little bit. So I led him back over to the other side, opened the cabinet door again. When he went back the next time, he's sniffing all around. He's touching my hand. And then suddenly he just almost frantically touched the door. And when he did, I had it open just to the point where if you push it like a half an inch or even an eighth of an inch, the door would just automatically close. So these automatic doors are a lot easier. And so once that happened a few times, he was on it. So the reason I described that is Ruckus first learned to touch the target stick. Then he learned to pursue it and touch it. And he also had to learn that he had to touch the exact spot on the target stick, which was the big red ball, which makes it very easy. So then when I went to the cabinets, he's still touching, but he had to touch something different.
Right.
And so the goal when you're starting this type of training, when you're using a target stick, which I'll feature a target stick a lot during the show, because if you're watching this at home and you want to teach your dog a cute trick and you get a clicker and a bag of treats, you can follow along and you can get your dog doing some of these things pretty easily. But the goal is for him to touch it so many times where he hears that click and he gets a reward that he becomes expectant. It's like he's entitled for his treat. And so when he touches my hand and he doesn't get it, he gets a little frantic because he's thinking, dude, I just touched something. Why am I not getting the treat? And so it makes him try other things. All right. And so that's going to lead me into the next trick. And I want to show you that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the news. And then I'm going to talk to, is it Ashley Marie? I'm going to talk to Ashley Marie a little bit about puppy training and give her a nice puppy training tip. And so this next trick, I wanted Ruckus to do something a little different. So I had him touching something, and as he touched it repeatedly, I would jiggle it around a little bit, so it was kind of hard for him to get to it. But it also triggers an instinct that he has to play, where he might use his mouth a little bit. All right. So I started this, and this is what I call a pill bottle retrieve. And so let's go ahead and cue up this video on the retrieve. So here you're going to see me. I've got a pill bottle. It's got treats in it. At first, I've given him a click and a treat every time he touches the bottle. So at this point, I start expecting a little more. And so I jiggled it around the other day. I missed filming it the other day. But I jiggled it around a little bit in front of him like I was kind of playing keep away. And anytime he opened his mouth at all and touched it with his teeth, I would click and give him a treat. Just like we did with the target stick on the last show. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you didn't catch the last show, I left it posted. You can go watch it. There's a whole segment on the target stick. In fact, there's 2 shows that have a little bit of that on there. So what's happening now is Ruckus has figured out he has to touch it with his teeth. Now, his goal is to get the treat. So as soon as he touches it, he tends to drop it. Like if I drop it, he drops it. And he's thinking, okay, score. Do I get my treat?
So funny because this is my first time seeing it, so I'm all like proud mom, like, oh, look how I'm doing it.
I don't let her see me doing this stuff because
Makes it more exciting.
since I'm always right and she thinks she is, she'll try to tell me how to train him.
Yeah. Well, I would try, but I know I'd be wrong.
So what happens here, you're going to see something very interesting. You see how he's nudging it with his nose? So there's a toy that I'm going to recommend for the puppy that's in there. And this toy disperses food when the dog rolls it around. So Ruckus is well versed at using this toy. So in his eyes, this toy is all about dispersing food. The other toy. And so what's happening here with him is that he's trying to roll it. And he thinks if I roll it, the food will fall out.
Well, because he has the toy that you made him, the feeding tube that we talked about. Was that last week or the week before that?
We showed it at the end of last week's show. He was pushing it around on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm going to just make a minor adjustment here. We've got a little too hot on it.
Good boy, take it.
There we go.
Take it.
All right.
Good
So,
boy, take it.
so essentially, what's happening here is he's learning that when it goes in his mouth, I click the clicker, and what's very important, you may not notice, is I'm taking the food out of the jar. So Ruckus is getting the treats out of the jar. Now, the reason I'm doing this, I'm going to give a minute to explain this, and go ahead and just bring it back to us. And so the reason that I'm taking the food out of the jar, one of the things that I hear a lot is that my dog retrieves, and when my dog goes and grabs the ball and brings it back, he stops about 5 or 6 feet away from me. When I reach for the ball, he runs away, taking the ball with him. So for a dog, when you throw a ball, they're working hard to score that trophy. So they go running out, they grab the ball, or they sniff around and find it, and they come running back. And when you reach for it, they want to play keep away because this is their trophy. And so they're either trying to get you to play with them when they back away, or they're saying, wait a minute, I just scored this trophy. This is mine. And so one of the reasons I use this pill bottle retrieve is because when Ruckus figures this out, and he's already mostly there.
Because he's super smart.
Yes, he's somewhere down at 300 on the intelligence scale. No, he's actually pretty smart, and he loves treats. And so when he figures this out, what's going to start happening is he's going to come back with the treats that are in the jar. Now, when doing this, there's an important point here. You can never actually let him have this toy by himself. I also would stop using the feeding puzzle for the 2 or 3 weeks that I'm working on this.
Okay.
I don't want him to confuse the feeding puzzle rolls and give me treats. The bottle, which is very similar, rolls very similar, doesn't give me treats.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Because I'm really good at that. Ashley wants to know about the feeding puzzle. Would you want me to grab it? Because she just asked about what was the toy that disperses the food.
Yes, go ahead and get it.
It is on last week's show, so you can check that out, but I'll grab it real fast. Don't take too long explaining it, but I want to make sure we answer Ashley's question.
So what happens with a feeding puzzle is, if you didn't see last week's show, dogs get very bored eating out of a food dish. And so this is a puzzle, but unlike a lot of dog puzzles that disperse one treat, this is designed for his entire meal. So this is very easy to make. It's a piece of PVC pipe. I usually recommend about a 9-inch long pipe with a cap on both ends. One of the caps is a simple end cap that you push onto the end and tap it. There's no glue in here. I don't like the glue being on here because their food's in it. Then the other one actually is called a clean out cap. And that's because it has this little plug. And so essentially what you do is there's a 3/4 inch hole in the side, 2-inch PVC pipe, got a cap on the end of it just like that. You put all of their dry kibble in it. Now it's important that you teach him to push it around, because if he doesn't push it around and you just give it to him, he might think it's a chew toy. So one of my clients,
not naming any names,
gave this to her dog and
I was like, here you go, here's dinner.
didn't follow the directions. And so Ruckus has learned to actually unscrew this.
Because he's so smart.
And he was just determined that he was going to beat it.
Well, it was funny because
he chewed the heck out of it.
He was pushing it around and I could hear it. And then, be silent for a second because he'd be eating the food and I could hear it because it's, on the hardwood floor.
Right.
And then it was silent for a little bit, and everybody knows silence with a dog sometimes is never a good thing,
Right.
especially if they're young. So I was like, So I went in, and he literally had just screwed off the cap, and all
Popped
the
it right
food
off of
was
there.
laying on the ground. I was like, well, I guess you're smart for figuring it out.
So real quick, when you put this end cap on here, you just kind of use your thumb and forefinger like that. If you do it any tighter, you need pliers to get it off.
Yeah.
And so nothing but dry food. You put in their entire meal for the morning, lunch, and evening, and you roll it. And you just show them that if they follow it and they push it around, the food comes out of it. So there it is. There's a feeding puzzle.
And if you're like me and you couldn't possibly think about making anything like this,
Send me a link. I'll make you one. Or send me a message. I'll make you one.
Private message Mark. He'll make you one.
So anyhow, the feeding puzzle is a great little thing. And so he did pretty good on the retrieving. So we are going to go to the next thing. We're going to go ahead and talk about our dog in the news. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about working with puppies. All right. So we're going to switch to our dog in the news super slide. And this is Ruckus wearing his mask. So this morning, when I was doing research on the show, I started searching around and I found a news article that was posted today. So there's a family.
Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. There's a family in the Raleigh area go back to us. There's a family in the Raleigh area that they themselves have corona in their family. Now, this family, the lady that was quoted in the story is a pediatrician. So she's very familiar with the coronavirus, and she said that she's got high school students and middle school students, and they weren't really practicing a super tight quarantine, and then they started noticing there were some symptoms in the family. Fortunately, nobody got super sick. They all felt awful, but they have recovered. And so the good news is the whole family's recovered. But Easter, I think it was, or the Friday before Easter, somewhere around that time frame, they noticed that their dog turned down a meal and was walking around coughing. And this is a little, I think it was a pug named Winston. And so Winston, being a doctor, she was curious, and so they tested Winston.
Well, it's disheartening when your dog coughs. Like, it's weird. Dogs don't cough. Like, every
Not
once in a while,
very
a
often.
human will be like, you choke on a chip, or
Right.
dinner didn't settle quite right, and a cough is kind of normal, especially allergy season and stuff. But
Right.
to hear a dog cough, to me, it's like,
Well, they
Oh,
know their
no.
dog. The biggest
Right.
thing here is they knew their dog.
Right.
All right. And so it probably doesn't help that both of them are in the medical
right.
practice,
and this whole thing is going on.
And so all of
They're
this
paying
is going
attention.
on.
That's good.
And so they decided to have the dog tested, and the dog had corona. All right. And so they say he's doing better. They don't believe that he's in danger. There's not a lot of other information about this. The article just went on to say that the family's doing great. The dog is doing better. He's back to his normal self. He's running, he's playing, he's eating normal. So
that's sad to hear.
it was surprising because most of the data before was saying you don't have to worry about your dog. You can let people pet your dog and things like that. The article did say quarantine your pets. Don't let them interact with other dogs, and don't let them interact with strangers.
No,
So-
now our poor dogs are being quarantined
I
too.
know. And Ruckus wears his mask well. He looks pretty good with the mask, I think. And so anyhow, that's the whole thing when it comes to this. When we first started talking about this several weeks ago, most of the data pointed to dogs and cats do not get the coronavirus. And then there was the mentioning, we talked about the ones in Hong Kong. There were two.
Oh, there's one dog, but and one cat.
No, there were two dogs.
Oh.
Two dogs in Hong Kong and one cat, I think.
Oh.
And then, while I was researching, I also found out that there is a tiger, a Malayan tiger, I believe it is, in New York that has corona. So
Coronavirus. When you think corona, it makes me think of them sitting, sipping a corona.
coronavirus, COVID-19.
Okay.
We can go with whatever.
Okay.
All right. But
I don't know why
the bottom line is that when we're out walking about, we can't have Ruckus playing with other dogs. We can't have him interacting with other people.
Is there anything we can do? I mean, I guess there's really, I mean, put a mask on him. Like,
Well, he did wear the mask for the
that.
photo. I mean, he looks great there. I have
Well, what's next?
I have a
What's to come next?
profile shot where you can see how weird it really looks on him because his muzzle is so long. It's like he's got this long muzzle with a mask out on the end of it. But she insisted this one was
That picture was
cuter.
better.
So we went with
Way to
that.
vote.
So anyhow, the article was pretty clear. Quarantine your dogs. I don't believe that you can do anything to sterilize them. I suppose if you had an antibiotic wipe, you could wipe them with that. But I would certainly avoid any sanitizer or anything like that because it would dry their skin out real bad. But the bottom line is we're still in quarantine. Now they're talking about releasing quarantine and gradual release and everything else. I think that each person's going to make their choice when it comes to that. Now, so I have had a lot of people asking me how virtual training goes and how it works. So I'm just going to show you one little quick thing of it. So what happens when I do virtual training, and my day is filled with virtual training. I go from one client to the next. Some days I don't even have much of a break. And it's crazy. It's the last Friday, I was busier on that Friday than I've been on Fridays before this started. So the virtual training is working really well. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out about virtual training because I have people ask me this all the time. First of all, is it effective? Well, it is effective. When I train a dog, my normal mode of operation is to get the dog to listen to mom and dad and the rest of the family. So when I come in and train a dog, I usually coach them. Sometimes I handle the dog. In some situations, I don't actually handle the dog. I'm, quote, coaching the family on how to react to certain situations. Do this if the dog jumps. Do this if the dog goes to the bathroom in the house. This is how we teach him to go outside. And if they have trouble modeling the behavior that I'm showing them, I just show it to them again. Mm-hmm. So with virtual training, I've been training virtually for years. Normally it's staff members and friends from out of town and things like that. But I have trained dogs as far away as Las Vegas by using a virtual platform. And so what I normally do is explain the rules, explain what the goals are, and then I show a quick video. So we're going to show just a quick video. See if you can find that right here, and we're going to do that one right there. And so touch it again. There we go. So this is me explaining a process where I'm teaching the dog to do a come command. And you can probably hear that audio on our end. We don't hear it. But what I'm about to do is just teach him that moving toward me nets a treat. So when he moves toward me, he gets a treat. Go ahead and you can just switch us right back to the blue. There we go. And then back to there. So basically what I do is I show a video clip first of what I'm going to teach. While I'm showing that clip, I describe it in detail. I'll go back and play it again, sometimes in slow motion if I need to. And when the customer feels like they understand it, then I ask them to display that behavior in front of me. Now, I also take Ruckus, and I'll take Ruckus in front of the mic setup in here is I have the customer put up on a big screen TV. So it's a 65-inch TV. I'm standing in front of the TV in this room, which is fairly large. I have plenty of training space. And so what's funny is when I'm teaching a dog how to lay down or I'm teaching a dog how to sit, when I say sit or down to Ruckus, he does it.
He's a rock star. Yeah, he does it first time.
Almost perfect.
Okay.
So
almost.
Well, almost. And so anyhow, I'll walk him around, and if I'm doing a sit, I tend to face the camera. Mm-hmm. And if I'm doing a down, I tend to turn slightly sideways so you can see my angle so that I use the pressure. So if I'm teaching a dog to lay down, I kind of help them go off balance a little bit, and I gently maneuver them into a down position. And so when I'm trying to demonstrate that, the first few times, it worked pretty good. Then Ruckus figured it out. So as soon as I got in position and I said down, he would go down right away. So I found myself the other day, I walked in the room and I said, okay, so I'm going to pretend that I'm telling Ruckus to sit, but I'm not going to say the word sit. I'm going to substitute another word. Right. And so
yeah, you're in here going, onion,
that's
strawberry.
That's exactly what I said.
Peanut butter. I'm like, what is he training in there?
I said onion. And Ruckus looked at me and he didn't sit. So I was able to demonstrate to them how to handle it when the dog doesn't sit, how to get them motivated to sit.
Which is a very smart way, I have to say, because you've got to be able to demonstrate it to them.
Well, it worked.
It works good. And I think that Ruckus is obviously a great example, but I have heard and see your clients it working, that they're getting it. And speaking from a client who didn't do what they were supposed to do, I think that the virtual really puts a lot of the responsibility onto the owner where it needs to be, because we live with these dogs all day, every day. Mark comes in for an hour virtually or in person and then leaves, and the dog's like, all right, Mark's good, I'm good, I'm going to do whatever I want because you're not making me do it. But the virtual training, in my opinion,
so Diana,
do it.
My office manager, she said a phrase, and she said, it seems to be, because she's observed some of it virtually, and she said, it seems to me that clients are taking more responsibility for their dog. Like they're actually doing more with their dog because I cannot stand up and do it for them.
Well, because it really was easy to just be like, okay, go ahead. I'm just going to sit back here and watch you do your training.
I had a client one time.
Diana can speak for that too. Sorry.
So I had a client one time that was the nicest guy. I mean, this was the nicest guy. I certainly won't use his name, but he was a very important person in Charlotte. Okay. And so every time I would say, why don't you give it a try? He would say, no, I'm good. You do it.
That's what I felt like saying. No,
let's just put it this way. This is a man that when people are told to do something, they do it. And so I did the exact same thing. I continued to train his dog. And as we got kind of closer to the end, he said, he's doing it way better for you. And I said, well, yeah, that's because I actually do the training with him. And so it seems like people are taking more responsibility with handling their dog because I cannot do it for them. I have to coach them. So I play a video, I run through it, I critique their handling skills, and then I come back at it the following training session. So the first thing I do when I start a training session is I say, all right, show me what you got accomplished. And I've yet, not once, had a single customer where the dog was not getting it perfectly. And I believe that's because, one, everybody's home now with their dog, so they're looking for something to do. Two, they know I can't come next week and make the dog do it. And so they're actually getting involved in doing it more. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about puppies.
Yes, and Ashley has a question. She wants to know how many training treats can I give my puppy, either per session or per day recommendation. And I know she's probably just worried about feeding the dog too much on top of the 3 meals a day. She's probably feeding him as a puppy. So
when I do training, I don't use treats 100% of the time. But when I'm working with puppies, I mix treats and physical praise together. So if I tell a puppy to sit and the puppy sits, I scratch them on the chin and I give them lots of physical praise because I'm wanting to encourage them to stay. It's calm praise.
It's a good boy.
It's a good job, little buddy. What a good dog. Nice and calm.
I'm not very good at that part when I do. I'm like, good job. Oh my God, that's so good.
And the dog jumps up and
he
says,
jumps up out of the sunset like, that's amazing.
oh, it's playtime. And so,
is it calm?
So I mix praise in, and what that does is it helps the praise have more value because they're scoring the praise with a treat. It also increases the value of the treat because they like your praise.
So sometimes praise, sometimes treats, not.
Yes, okay. I mix them back and forth. Okay. The other thing that I do is one of the first things I do when I start training a dog, especially if it's a puppy, is I want them on a very good dog food. And so for me, a great dog food for puppies is called Life Abundance. In fact, I like it so much, it's on my website. If you go to dogtrainingcharlotte.com, there's a link there for food. You can watch all about the food. One of the reasons I like this food is that it's highly digestible and it gives a very consistent bowel movement. And that's very important for a puppy when they're learning housebreaking. So the more consistent the formula is for the dog, the more stable those bowel movements stay. Now, I will point out that it is a food that's made in the United States and they've never had a recall. Not many food companies can say that. There have been recalls where something's in the food that shouldn't be there. So that's one reason I like the food. The other reason I like the food is they also manufacture training treats. And those training treats closely match the formula of the food. So what that means is that if you give your dog a few too many treats and it's drastically different than the food, then you can cause a puppy to have diarrhea.
No,
You don't want that problem. And so their training treats are really great. Dogs love them. And so what happens if they're eating the Life Abundance and they're getting the Life Abundance treats, it's very similar, so it doesn't upset their system. So before we talk about quantity of treats, I wanted to make sure that you're using something that doesn't upset their system. For example, years ago when people started using more and more and more treats with training, one of the treats that was chosen by healthy individuals was raisins. Well, we've now discovered that raisins can be toxic for a dog. So we don't give a dog raisins or grapes. So you can use all sorts of treats, but the closer formulated to the dog's food, the better. So that's the first thing. Quantity of treats has to do with your dog's appetite. And so if I have a dog that's chunking up a little bit because you're using too many treats, first of all, in training, I want to wean the dog off of 95% of the treats that you use in the beginning. So if I tell a dog to do a come or a sit or a go to place on command or walk next to me on the leash, I want them to do it not just because I might give them a treat. I want them to do it because I'm giving them physical praise. And I'm also going to be teaching them that I'm the pack leader. So I want them to follow my commands. They're not requests, they're our command.
So required 100% of the time.
100% of the time. And so there's a lot of debate about this. And so I had a debate with a client one day, and they said, well, I want my dog to love coming to me. And I said, that's step number one.
Right.
We're going to make sure that he knows it's the best part of his day to stop what he's doing and run over to you. He always gets something exciting, play, treats, play ball, roughhouse, rub his belly, whatever he likes. But when your dog's chasing a squirrel into the road, he doesn't care that you have a treat. And that road's very dangerous. So my philosophy is we're going to spoil the dog, make it fun, but also it's a required behavior. So you don't know how well your dog is trained until you put them in a distraction and you give them a command when you don't have a treat and they don't want the treat. That's when you find out, is your dog trained really well or is he doing tricks just because you have food? And so when you start out with a puppy, I know I'm beating around the bush to get to this answer. If your dog is eating a lot of treats and they're very closely matched to the food and you think that maybe they're getting too much, all you have to do is cut back some on the food in the bowl. So if your puppy's eating 2 cups of food a day, for example, and you notice that he's turning his nose up at the treats a little bit and he doesn't seem interested in eating, you could be overfeeding him. So if that were the case, what I would do is reduce the food in the bowl a little bit and make sure that I make that food up during training. So it's very important that not every bit of your dog's meal comes from their bowl. Dogs need mental stimulation. The feeding puzzle that I showed earlier is a great way to get that mental stimulation. So I would do that. And when it comes to quantity of treats, just watch what your dog's response is. If he's taking in the treats pretty wholeheartedly and you've got him matched to the food pretty good, then you're not going to have diarrhea. And if he's not overeating, I would say it's fine. Now, probably not a good idea to give your dog a huge meal if you're using, let's say you're using something that requires a lot of treats. Some of the tricks that I teach, I use more treats on. So I don't choose to do that training 5 minutes after they eat a big bowl of food.
He's like, I'm going to be working with Ruckus tonight. Please don't feed him dinner.
Right.
Which, of course, makes me crazy because he sits there and looks at me at like 5 o'clock, I swear, his internal ticker goes off. And he sits and he looks at me and he looks at his dish. And he looks at me and he looks at his dish. And I'm like, stop. Act like he's going to die if he misses a meal.
And she's on the edge of a mental breakdown because this 98-pound dog.
He needs to lose 20 pounds probably.
The vet said 18 to 20 pounds need to come off. But she's still worried he'll starve to death between 5 o'clock and 5:05. So I'll have to announce I'll be working with Ruckus after dinner. Please don't feed him, or feed him half of his food, and the rest I use while training, or I mix it with some of the treats that we use. So Life Abundance is a great food. Go check it out on the website. It's dogtrainingcharlotte.com. But if you choose not to use that food, that's okay. Just feed a premium food And I would try to pick treats that are formulated very much the same. Some of the food companies make great treats. So try to match that. I do want to show you one more thing, and what I want to find out if she's still there is your dog walking on a leash?
Are you talking about Ashley?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Ashley, is your dog still?
Yes. Ashley, if you're still with us, is your dog walking on a leash? And why?
Or is he leash screen? Listen to me.
Yeah, is he leash screen? So leash screen just means the dog's not walking on a leash. And if the dog's walking on a leash but pulling you all over the place, then you can just simply take some treats with you and disperse a few treats right by your leg while walking.
You wanting me to go get the rope? Is that what you're
No, we'll do that some other time.
Week.
So anyhow, so that was just kind of our show, and basically what we want to do is get suggestions
She's
from
still
you
with
guys.
us. Ashley's with
All right.
us, so give her your...
So the puppy's walking on a leash, and so what I would do when you start walking on the leash and your puppy charges out ahead of you, when he or she runs ahead of you, you're going to turn in the other direction and start walking slowly. It's a quick about face. Start walking slowly, and when you do that, you're going to take your left hand. We always teach dogs to walk on the left side. That's the international standard. And so you take your left hand with a treat in it and just hang your treat down by your knee and coax your dog to that spot. And just do that every time the dog forges ahead of you. Now, if you're planning on going for a mile walk, that's not going to happen the first day you do this, not in one long walk. Now, you might walk a mile between this mailbox and that mailbox, because you're going to turn every single time he bounces off the end of the leash. Now, don't let him hurt himself, but when he goes out to the end of the leash, you just make an about face, turn around, sweet talk him back up to that location by your leg, and then he gets a little treat right there. Hopefully what will happen is when you start to turn, he'll start looking, and he'll say, oh, that means I'm about to get a treat. He'll also start assuming you're about to turn. And when that happens, he'll start staying by your leg a little bit more. So that's just a very quick basic tip there. Again, I do virtual training, and one of the things...
We have quite a few puppies right now, too.
Lots of them.
It's a good time. People have been adopting or fostering puppies, and...
I'm so glad that you brought that up. There's one more thing I want to cover, and then we're going to get off the air here. So earlier today, while reading, I discovered that we're getting a lot of requests from rescues, because rescues are still adopting dogs. They're setting appointments for it. Like the Charlotte Humane Society is actually setting appointments for you to come in and look at dogs.
Oh, that's
All right.
cool.
And so while I was reading about it, they were talking about how they still need donations. And so I did call up the Humane Society, or I went on their website, and I did donate today.
Aww.
So
Does this have anything to do with me waking up this morning going, I think we should get a puppy? And he was like, yeah, that's a great idea.
I just said, I think you forgot how much work a puppy is.
I think you forgot how much work a puppy is.
But we are.
I'm like, yeah, but I am you, so why?
But we are considering it. All right, so tune in next week, 7 o'clock.
See if we have a puppy.
See if we have a puppy by then. Who knows? And so, Ashley, give me a message so that we can exchange messages back and forth, and we'll tell you about what we do.
Also, Sandra will send you that link for the Life Abundance Food.
And so there you have it. That's our show. And if you have any suggestions or anything like that you would like us to do on the show, let me know. I'm always going to feature some kind of trick and training or something like that. I have some ideas for next week, but I am looking for stimulus from you guys. So tell me what you need me to cover.
Oh,
All
and
right?
I put on Ruckus's bow tie. I didn't even get to be on the show today.
Oh yeah, Ruckus is, he's tired because he had that
Except for all
dog
those
over to
videos.
play. So, all right, thanks a lot.